I have a deadline to eat.
Okay, we're ready then. It's being recorded.
All right, I got the surgery tomorrow, so I gotta stop eating before a certain time, and it just throws me off. I gotta stop eating and drinking. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for being here today. And again, much appreciate all of your time from busy lives. Please excuse my dogs if they start barking, because they get everything. I'll try to make up my mind. Thank you for coming. I look forward to hearing what you guys have for us today at New York City EDC. So I guess I'll just get it moving along. So who exactly is doing this? I mean, we always pick on Charlie, but I see Nate is there. I see Wahira. I see a lot of great.
Yeah, I brought backup today. I tend to get beat up, so I thought I'd share the love.
It depends on what you're talking
That is
about.
not true. Not in the last 2 meetings. I have not beaten you up.
I still have PTSD from the last one.
So, that was about a year ago.
No, that was in May.
You even got the month.
The bruises are still there.
If you could, Rob, if you could pull up the PDF.
Yep, gotcha.
Hey, good evening. This is Elvis.
Elvis, thank you for coming, Elvis.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry for being a little bit behind, just literally getting off the train. So I do apologize.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. Thank you, Elvis. Thank you.
Thanks, Elvis.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, guys. And Ralph, I meant, and I really say my fault. I meant to send you a thank you on the park. After you sent that second email, those guys got on it. And,
no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about that, Elvis. We're good. We're good.
Respond, to you and let you know.
Don't worry about it. We're good. Don't worry, Elvis. You're all right with me. I don't care what Bobby Crespo say about you. You're all right with me.
I don't care what Ralph and Cynthia and Maria says about you.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate you guys.
Good evening.
Charlie, good evening. Hi, Shatoria.
Right.
Hi.
How we doing, Shatoria?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm well. Thank you, Shatoria. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shatoria,
all right, Charlie, the floor is yours.
Hi.
Gotcha. I'm going to run through, for the sake of time, because I know that Maria needs to go eat. I'm just going to run through. You're going to see some of the participants. I'll just let you know which department they're in alphabetical order of sorts. So first of all is in our neighborhood strategies team. He's primarily here on the Hunts Point Vision Plan item. Felix, he works in our transportation division. We'll be talking about the NYC/Doc NYC RFEI. Ralph, if you want to go to the next slide, that'll help. We have Jocelyn Dupre, who you're familiar with, as well as who will be talking about the grant. That's the item that we need a letter of support. That's a grant that we're going to be submitting towards the end of next month. You have Malia Teskey, who's in our asset management division. She'll be speaking to the Anheuser-Busch item, which is the first item on the agenda. Mostly, my colleague Nate Hay, who's also in our neighborhood strategies division, working on the Hunts Point Vision Plan. You also have Rachel, the chief of staff in the neighborhood strategies division, also working on Hunts Point Vision Plan. And then Wahira, my colleague in our government and community relations team, pretty much covering all these items. The agenda today, one of our tenants, Anheuser-Busch, is going to PDC submit a design package for an additional...
Charlie, I'm sorry. The acronym, can you just explain what PDC is?
Public Design Commission. The Public
Thank
Design
you, Charlie.
oversees any and all properties built on city land. Busch is our tenant in the Hunts Point Food Distribution Center, and they are a design package to that commission for review. As part of that commission typically asks that the affected community board submit a letter of acknowledgement that the fact presented. Then we're going to be presenting on this grant for resiliency. My colleagues will go through what BRIC means. We then have Freight NYC and Dock NYC requests for expressions of interest. We'll be speaking to a previously released RFEI and a soon-to-be-released request for proposals. We have then been in touch with Mr. Acevedo for quite some time to discuss a communication plan and strategy for EDC coming before the community board at some periodic level. I want to share with you what those plans are. We're then happy to update you on the Hunts Point Vision Plan update, which is a plan that we've been working with the community board and the council member to revise the plan that was initially released back in 2004. And then we have a few project updates and then discussing some upcoming milestones for the coming weeks and months. So that said, Ralph will go to the next slide and my colleague Malia will run us through the Anheuser-Busch item.
Thanks, Charlie. How's my volume?
Good.
Great. So, as Charlie mentioned, my name is Malia Chesky, and I work in EDC's asset.
Malia, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to mute everyone else so that we can make sure that we hear you properly, okay? I'm sorry about that.
Sure thing. No problem.
Okay. The floor is yours, ma'am. Go ahead.
Great. Hi, my name is Malia, and I work in EDC's asset management group. Thanks for having us here tonight. The city holds a ground lease with Anheuser-Busch at the Hunts Point Food Distribution Center, and EDC is the lease administrator. As Charlie mentioned, I'm presenting a project for community board review that was part of Anheuser-Busch's Public Design Commission submission. And so I'm going to go into a little bit about the project, and then I'll welcome any questions. So Anheuser-Busch is proposing to locate a new can baller in a pre-engineered metal building located in a nook of their existing building. So in the drawings on this slide, in the lower drawing, the blue rectangle is the existing building, and the red rectangle is the proposed location of the pre-engineered metal building, the subject of the PDC application. You can also see in the aerial image above the rough outline of where it's located. So this pre-engineered metal building will be a max height of 16 feet and 8 3/4 inches, and it'll be surrounded by the existing building on 3 sides. The structure will be made out of pre-engineered metal panels and a sloped roof, and it'll be a freestanding structure, not attached to the existing building. The structure won't affect parking or egress from the existing building or site traffic. And we welcome any questions you have on this new addition to Anheuser-Busch's property.
Yes. My name is Elvis. What is this space going to be used for?
So this pre-engineered metal building will hold a can baller, and a can baller compresses aluminum cans into manageable bales for recycling. So it's to protect equipment from the elements.
Got it. What is the what are the I'll ask, are there going to be any emissions from this process of compacting the metal into the environment?
No, it's an electric process.
And lastly, will it add any more jobs to this area where people can walk to work?
Pardon, you said jobs? Or can you repeat the question?
certainly, I was asking, will this new building or facility enable more people to be employed that may live in the area?
My understanding is that this new equipment is just to facilitate the work already being done by the existing employees.
Okay, I had a quick question. So this is already within the building, or is it on the street? Where is this new structure?
So it's going to be on the ground floor, and the current building, it's most clear in the plan on the bottom right-hand image that there is like an atrium of sorts that was currently did not have anything in it. And so where the red rectangle is the location of this metal structure that will house the can baller equipment. And so it's really self-contained within the premise of the current building, and it will only be slightly noticeable from the street. But it is located on the ground floor.
Any other questions? Okay, you can proceed.
Yeah, no, thank you, Malia. This is one of those weird things where we have to come to the community board, no matter how small a upgrade to an existing facility may be. So, I think, Ralph, we need a letter of acknowledgement, which is simply notifying PDC that we did, in fact, present to the committee today.
Ralph, sounds good, Charlie. Sounds good, yes.
Ralph, before you go any further, Charlie, I need to know that since they're not going to create any jobs because it's actually going to take over whatever operation they have there, is there going to be any layoffs?
Not to our knowledge, no.
Because anytime you start bringing in new machinery, it's that you're letting people go because you won't need them.
Yeah, I mean, my preference, to be honest, was that Anheuser-Busch's representatives would be here because they have a pretty long-term lease here, and I think it would be good if the committee and the board had a direct relationship with Anheuser-Busch.
I think we've been trying for years, right?
We can ask those questions to them, but I would encourage them to develop a with you.
Ralph, you got any questions? Maria?
No, I mean, it's just like Charlie explained, any little thing on city property with these landlord, the tenants and stuff like that, they got to go through the Public Design Commission. So part of the rules is they got to come in and present. It's not where they're asking us for support or anything. They just we got to acknowledge that they presented to us. That's it.
Right,
yeah. I guess just on my end, in terms of Anheuser-Busch being present, it's much easier to Zoom from St. Louis. I know a lot of times a lot of the big folks are not really located here in New York. So it would be nice to, maybe not within this meeting, but in another juncture, to have them again, come to this community again and kind of see that.
Yeah, I think we. Yeah, we could figure out what corporate representatives are here, either Hunts Point or New York City at large. I know they are headquartered somewhere else.
Charlie, can you ascertain for me anyway that they're not going to be laying off anybody because of this new addition?
Okay. Yeah, we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
You could go to the next item.
Can I clarification? I'm Anheuser-Busch's architect, and I can tell you they have one of these balers elsewhere located in the facility, and they're moving it to this location because it's much more efficient use of the space and efficiency in the movements within the building. So my belief is the answer is that no one be laying off because the function's going on with a similar piece of equipment, and this is really just sort of an upgrade to the operation. But I don't believe there's any intent here at all to lay anyone off, and that's in my conversations with them.
All right, so it's relocating an existing piece of equipment that is inside the building to outside.
To moving it inside the building in a different area where circulation of vehicles works a little better and internal circulation within the building works better.
All right, helpful. Thank you, Arthur.
Yep, thank you.
This item here, my colleague Jocelyn will run us through, but we are preparing to submit a application to FEMA for a grant. Sorry, we are submitting an application to the state by December 2nd, which is for a FEMA grant. And we are asking for a letter of support for the community, from the community board, support this application to secure funding for risk resiliency projects in Hunts Point. So Jocelyn, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. I think just to lay the context here a little bit, right? We've all worked together very closely for a number of years now on resiliency, and earlier this year released the Hunts Point feasibility study, which really aimed to summarize overall, the massive community engagement effort and all of the collaboration around, identifying climate risk, identifying vulnerabilities, as well as a pilot project to move forward with that original rebuild by design allocation of $20 million from the federal government. I think what the previous work really told us is that this area faces three main types of risk. We have a flooding risk that's really isolated to the industrial area, and then there's energy as well as heat risks that are really shared by both the community as well, the residential community as well as the industrial area. And what we identified with that initial $20 million was the opportunity to move forward a pilot project around energy. This has been supplemented that with another $51 million to get to the energy pilot project, which includes the tri-generation microgrid, backup power in the industrial facilities, as well as the solar projects at 2 neighborhood schools to provide community shelter. We always knew that was the first step in advancing a resiliency strategy, and are committed to, working with the Mayor's Office of Resiliency and finding additional funding and additional ways to advance resiliency throughout the entire peninsula. And so we can go to the next slide. I think, what this building resilient infrastructure and communities, that's what BRIC stands for, grant, allows for is pretty narrow. But at the same time, we wanted to take advantage of this opportunity and any opportunity that we can bring, additional into the Hunts Point community. And so we can't guarantee that we can get it. It's a national competition. But at the same time, it's very uniquely tailored to actually advancing the building level mitigation measures that were recommended out of the last study to really protect those jobs in the food distribution center and protect our food supply. So what we're proposing to do here is to employ building hardening techniques. So what does that mean? Essentially, most of the buildings in the food distribution center are actually elevated out of the floodplain. So like your first floor elevation is generally not in the floodplain. However, particularly for the meat market and Sultana Cinderella, you have, well, let's start with the meat market. So for the meat market, you have both loading doors, as other like below ground infrastructure. A lot of the energy to the buildings and a lot of the infrastructure is actually in tunnels below ground. So every single one of those openings that exist throughout the facility is what we call a flood pathway. Opportunity for flood waters to get in and then pretty much stop this facility from being able to function. and being able to provide, again, like those jobs and that critical food supply. And then for Sultana Cinderella, the first floor actually is in the floodplain. And that has some higher level of flood risk in a sense, being right along the waterfront. Although, not the same level of risk as like the large scale of the meat market and the electrical infrastructure there. So just a little bit different types of risk. So the goal is to close off the building openings, elevate electrical infrastructure, and then reinforce these buildings. Because once you go in and actually close these openings and stop the water from going in, there's all this pressure of the water, and these are really old buildings. So we need to ensure that they have the structural integrity to withstand those floodwaters. So this opened in August, it was, yes. And then, we've been just figuring out the past couple of months whether we could apply, what it means, how to get an application together, and wanted to come, to the community board, both for transparency and so what we're up to, but also, to ask for a letter of support if you'd like to provide it, as, any letters with community support will help us to, get your point and advance this really competitive national grant application. So as Charlie said, it's due December 2nd. We would find out next winter. And I just want to emphasize again, this is just another layer, right? We have the energy pilot. This is another layer, that resiliency strategy. My colleague, Eric, will be presenting on the vision plan. And, we're committed to continuing to work with the community to find other ways to identify projects and funding opportunities that respond to the risks in Hunts Point. And, talking about social resiliency, that's not something we can apply for with this grant, talking about heat, talking about what we can do on the pragmatic side. But it's something that we know is critical. We know it's important to the community, and we want to work together. The same thing, when it comes to stormwater or thinking about parks and other pilot projects. Those are things that just did not qualify for this grant. But I want to be clear that they were at the top of our mind, because we know that those were things that were recommended in the past out of the community and out of the previous work. But we need to find, the right pathways and the right funding opportunities for those. And there's very strict guidelines of what we can and can't apply for. So with that, there are questions.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
can I? I'm sorry.
Who's that? Miguel?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Miguel.
Just a quick question. Has the board been able to see a copy of the study? And if not, would we be able to see a copy and be able to read that study that's mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. We have shared it. We briefed key leadership on it of the board as well as electeds, the point, and Nija back in February before we released it. But absolutely, it's on our website, and we can send over links.
Thank you.
Ralph, did we get a copy of it? Did you see it?
She said in February. I honestly don't remember, but I do know that this is always something that we was trying to, the resiliency program, we was trying to include with the Hunts Point Vision Task Force. And I know that we were meeting every 6 months, and we decided to come up with a new system. And we have not had any meetings regarding any of this with EDC. I know they're going to give us an update, good updates. I can look into my emails to see if that study was good. I'm sure if she's saying that they gave it to us, I'm sure I have it. I'll be more than happy to forward it to this committee. That's not a problem.
Yeah, and we'll resend it.
Charlie just put it in the chat. So
Great.
Miguel, if you click on the link on the chat, it's right there.
Thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, is this something where Charlie is on EDC's website?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
it's on EDC's website. Right, okay. And I do have some questions regarding this, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I also just want to say, they've been talking about, for a while when the whole resiliency, all those things came about. I think we always knew that the main flood protection that would come out of it would be hardening for certain facilities. So this has been on our radar, and at least EDC has mentioned it, I feel like, for a bit, probably over a year. I think we knew that hardening, if that was the route they were going to take. I guess for me, I'm a little disappointed. I mean, I get it, but I am disappointed. I was hoping that we would have something a little bit more intriguing and interesting around that whole waterfront space. There's lots of plans and other things that we had discussed before. I know the price tag is much bigger, and that this is probably what you can get for $50 million, which is crazy. So I guess Ralph, go ahead, ask your question.
Sure, I just want clarity to make sure. So we have the 20, Charlie, help me with this also, or Wahira, Nate. We have the 20 originally from HUD. We have the 25 that EDC threw in, right? And would this be an additional $50 million?
So there was 20 originally for HUD for the energy project, and then we added another $51 million, so that's $71 million.
You added. Okay, so it went up to 51. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yep, and that includes the solar at the neighborhood schools, the backup generation, and the tri-generation microgrid. And then.
So this is an additional 50?
We're hoping. So we don't have this money. We're hoping to secure it.
Okay. You don't have the 51? Is that what you're saying?
No.
We have the 51. $71 million
right.
committed.
So this is an additional $50 million. Okay.
This is up to $50 million. We don't plan to go the full $50 million because a couple of reasons. I mean, you need to have a benefit cost analysis, one, and given like the risk to reward for the project, we wouldn't be able to apply for a full $50 million. And then, we're trying to find the most cost-effective solution here for these buildings and to be competitive for a national. We're still refining those exact cost estimates. But I would say we're probably coming in significantly under $50 million. But that's the math.
Okay. Thank you.
We would find out in about a year if we get the money or not.
So when are you expecting to start this work? If you get
so we would find out winter if we got it, and then you're on like a 3-year clock to implement.
3-year clock from 22?
A 3-year clock from 2022, and you can have up to 3 1-year extensions. For example, we know that there might be some monitoring hazardous materials that might be needed on the site that could potentially push out the timeline. So we do have the opportunity to apply for those extensions as needed. So it could be a 3 to 6 year process for all the design and construction.
Charlie, I'm just going to ask my crazy, stupid question all the time. Is this going to be bringing any jobs to the community that the people from the community can apply for, if you get it?
Mm-hmm.
We can't answer that question right now. I mean, we always strive to do that. But I think until we know if we've gotten the money, it's a little hard to tell. But certainly, I would say it helps protect existing jobs. And there's necessarily going to be construction and other temporary jobs. And usually through EDC procurement, we call for MWBE participation, higher NYC participation. So I think it remains to be seen. We can't give you that guarantee or that commitment now. But we certainly will continue to work with the community should we get this grant and work towards achieving some of those goals.
Please let Maria and Ralph know about this. That's going to be a question that always comes up at the board meetings. If it's going to create any jobs, how many jobs, and how is it going to be that our community can apply for the jobs?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I just had a quick question. The 4 pictures that are shown on this thing, What's the top one?
Yeah.
On the left.
I didn't get to the picture. So one of the big challenges here to implementing these building hardening techniques is that we want to keep these buildings in operation, right? And we don't want to have any real loss of function, both in terms of the original construction, but then also in terms of when you need to set these things up, right? One of the challenges we had in finding a design solution is every time there's a storm, there are some technologies you can use that you need to set up 3 to 5 days in advance, and then the hurricane might not even come. So you'll lose the operational capacity of your buildings when you don't even know that there's definitely going to be a flood event. So what we're recommending here, and we don't know the exact technology, it's something that would be figured out in the design process, but is something like these are 2 different vendors shown here, Aquasense or FlexGate, where some of this will be constructed in advance, but a lot of it will be deployed the day of a potential storm event, and that allows for that minimal impact on operations. So what you see in the top right there, that is a material that would be used to close, for example, a loading door, entranceway to a building, and it can be deployed within a couple of hours. We're also looking at technologies to the point of jobs. Some of the technologies being employed in other places require outside companies to come in and install them. Here, we're looking at technologies that could be deployed directly by workers on site, where they can be trained to deploy these technologies. They'll test them every year, and directly. Those are probably people that are already employed in Hunts Point, but potentially, it's additional work for the operations and maintenance that happen directly by staff versus an external company needing to come in.
But that piece there in the top left, where it looks like it's like kind of a walkway. Left.
The top left. So that's Aquasense. So pretty much what you need to install during construction are just anchors in the ground, and then all of these boards on site and anchors.
Okay. So, all right, it gives the appearance like that's something that happens all the time and that you can walk around and enjoy it. But that's
no,
something.
That wouldn't be there. Those would be little anchors in the ground. And then people will be taken out of their containers. We'll take a couple of inches. And like when you technology, they come actually into.
Yeah, you're having technical difficulties. You keep going in and out a little bit, but
are you? I'm sorry.
I just want to go. It's okay. I just want to go back. So you were saying it was Sultana and who else? And what were the other spaces that were getting the hardening and the?
Sultana, Citarella, and the meat market.
So nothing by the fish market, or are they like a whole other entity? They're not really you guys.
Yeah, so I mean, we looked at all of the facilities to see what we thought would qualify for this grant, and what made the most sense. In terms of the fish market, the risk is actually pretty low. I mean, in terms of a flood event, there might be flooding like on the site itself, but there's no opportunities for those floodwaters to actually enter the building, hampering the electrical, or destroying any exterior contents and inventory.
Okay. Any other questions?
So you're asking for a letter of support on this particular project, am I correct?
Yes, I mean, that would be great if you would like to provide it. I think it will definitely, increase our competitiveness to be able to get the grant, because we'll, be competing nationally with potentially hundreds of other applications. We do think it's very competitive, but, working closely with the community and having community support is something key that the federal government looks for.
Shatoria has a question. Shatoria, instead of putting it in the chat, just ask it, please.
Look at the chat too.
Yeah, so the question is, to what extent will the construction of these hardening structures impair the job function of current employees and outside surrounding job markets typically?
Yeah.
Will traffic be impeded, and what safety measures will be taken to safeguard the surrounding water?
Yeah. So we very, very minimal impact. I mean, for example, they might need a few parking spaces. Because infrastructure in general, we built this solution around ensuring that we would not impede the functioning of the markets. You might have first tenants at Arella because some things need to be done at the loading doors. On some days, certain loading doors that you can't use, they would still have plenty of loading doors, able to be operational for the facility to fully function. So say, there can't be no impacts, of course, but very, very limited impacts to operations, to jobs during construction, and a pretty short construction period as well for these types of measures, because, essentially, we're waterproofing hatches and openings that go to below ground infrastructure. We're putting in these anchors for this flood equipment, but, you're not installing huge flood walls or, massive infrastructure that takes years. At the end of the day, our construction timelines for most of these things are under 1 year to be able to put them in place. And in many cases, for many pieces of it, it's just a number of months.
Shatori, do you have any follow-up?
And the time frame, because before you stated that the time frame would probably require you to request an extension regarding hazardous materials. So would that still impede your timeline from being a couple of months to under a year to having to request additional time?
Yeah, so that 3-year timeline as like a baseline of how long we think this will take includes doing some environmental assessment, getting the approvals that we need, doing design of the project, and going through construction. So all of those steps together take about 3 years. We think that we can likely make that even with the hazardous materials, knowing that on this site, and my colleague Tracy can speak to this way better than I can, and I know, she comes and presents directly, but, initial indications are that, it's not a huge problem on this site, and so it would primarily just be monitoring and disposal during construction, and we're also going to have pretty minimal ground disturbance with what we're doing. We're not doing a ton of digging and destruction on this site. However, I just wanted to caveat that because I know, timelines can change, and, our 3 years is our ambition, but absolutely, if more needs to be done, for example, or more is found on the environmental front, that could extend a timeline beyond 3 years, and we won't know that until, the work is underway.
Thank you.
I just have one question. How will this, and Charlie, maybe you might, or she might be able to, Joyce, is it? Jocelyn?
Jocelyn.
Would this impede on traffic in the area?
No, it won't impede traffic. I will say that when we actually deploy it, we would operationally request that trucks be moved from one side of the facility to another, but there is no truck, for example, directly against loading doors to minimize risk during the flood event. But that would just be during the flood event itself. there's plenty of room within the site to move those trucks, so it's just really an operational issue. We don't see this impeding traffic. Really, the most it will do long-term is take up a couple of parking spots.
Well, I meant during the time of construction, would it impede on traffic?
No, really, the very minimal space is needed to lay this infrastructure, and our consultant team described it as really just a few parking spots for laydown areas during construction that would significantly impede site operations.
But most of the work, correct if I'm wrong, is happening within the boundaries of the tenant's leasehold, which are not public streets. All of this essentially is happening on private property.
Okay. So.
Okay. Questions? Bobby, you have more questions?
No, I don't. I don't have any more. But is Ralph around?
You might have to do a Peter.
Yeah, I'm right here. I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. Just need to know, you have any other questions, or we have any more items on the agenda?
No, I mean, this is part of their presentation. They got a couple of more things that they want to present.
But
I just wanted clarity with the amount of money and I guess the structure itself. So Maria asked those questions, so I'm fine with that.
All right. So then.
Wait, I had one quick question. Is this the only thing that you guys need approval on, or is there more in the presentation that you need?
No, it's the only one. I mean, if you want to go home, this is the only item that we would need a quorum for. We don't need a letter of support for other items.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure. So
you need a letter of right?
A letter of no objection. Or a letter of support or a letter of no objection?
I think we could do a letter of support. I think we can work with either you or Bobby and Ralph to dive into details and helping to craft that letter. We hope that the information today was enough to give you a sense of what the opportunity is and what it would mean for our tenants in the community. But certainly, like diving into the details of the letter, we can schedule some time. But we know that this committee would have to authorize the board or the district manager to be able to do that. So maybe we work with you, Ralph, in the coming week or so to help craft that letter, and that's what's presented at the full board later this month.
Well, the full board meeting is tomorrow, Charlie.
Oh shit. Okay.
So we got a quick turnaround here, but it has to get approved tonight. It has to pass tonight to meet tomorrow, and then we can discuss everything and so forth. That's I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, Maria, to your question. Oh, please.
Yeah, I had another question. So basically, all the funding and this particular what you're submitting to the FEMA BRIC grant, that also includes the solar, or is it just the hardening and the flood protection? Just the hardening and the flood protection?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, some of the sorry, go ahead.
Like I said, I wish there was a little bit more. But
I got one little question. I always got to ask this since it's a floodline protection, which I'm a fan of. However, I would prefer it in our parks. So this is going into the meat market, correct?
The market and 600 Food Center Drive, Santa Cinderella.
So are any of those businesses contributing money towards this? Are they putting in money for this?
So what is coming from is money that was already previously allocated to those businesses as part of the $150 million Hunts Point Modernization Fund. So that would be for it. It's not, additional city capital that wasn't already allocated.
I understand the city capital, and I'm asking these private businesses, your tenants, are they going to contribute any funding into this?
That's not currently anticipated. What's currently anticipated is to use the allocation from the $150 million modernization fund for the market.
Are they getting any other tax incentives, these people?
For this project, no.
Yes.
No.
No? Okay. All right. So, Maria, if there's any other questions from your committee, you need to get a motion for your letter of acknowledgement on the first item, and then you need a motion for the application. You need 2 motions.
No, Bobby, I'm sorry. The first item, we just got to send them. All they needed to do was present. So they presented that first item. That's not a voting item.
But they need a letter of acknowledgement.
It's essentially an attendance card that says we were here today.
That's basically, they got the agenda, and this is, normally whenever a letter of acknowledgement, it was never a voting item because they presented. That's all they needed to do was present. So just a point of clarity there.
Yeah.
But you guys do what you need to do. I'm just letting you know. For a letter of acknowledgement, basically is just that they came to the meeting and they presented.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And for the brick grant, just, to clarify to Maria's question, I think what would make us more competitive is having this letter of support. If it's just a letter of, no objection, it's not really going to be something that's going to add that layer of depth to our application. And I completely hear you, Maria, in terms of, wanting, and Ralph, in terms of wanting to see things in parks and wanting to, achieve the other community goals that have very clearly been laid out from the previous work. And I know my colleague Eric will present briefly on the vision plan, but, ultimately that's really what we see as that key forum to work together to develop that longer term strategy. And then be able to identify projects, programs, and, longer term ambitions to achieve those resiliency goals, where this grant unfortunately allows us to, just achieve these very narrow goals, which are, I think, still very important for jobs and for the food supply. But obviously, this one grant is not the be all end all of achieving everything we want to do.
I'm sorry, I wasn't on mute. So I don't know if my dogs are. I get it. I mean, I'm empathetic. I'm okay. But hopefully, we can continue. I'd rather like to see community is to continue, and from Hunt Point community and the city in general, is continue to push to try to get the real big flood mitigation stuff together for our peninsula out there. I mean, all those businesses, that's a big base that you get from the Bronx River all the way across the East River. And, hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing happens in the meantime, that we continue to work to find progress that we can do there to protect the businesses and the community. I mean, and the nation at large, right? A lot of our food that goes across the country is right there in that spot. And so it's really important. And so I hope that the city continues to find ways to fund bigger projects there that help with flood mitigation.
Get out of here. Go.
Okay. With that being said, I guess I need a motion from a committee member to give a letter of support for EDC to do this for this project, the hardening, the flood mitigation, and things of that nature, and then we can go from there. So I have Elvis, Miguel, and did we say that Miles is a part? Okay.
Correct.
Elvis, Miguel, or Miles. I need a motion and I need a second, and then we'll do the vote.
Am I able to motion?
Okay. So Miles, gave a motion.
But Maria, I'm sorry. You should state what the motion is exactly, because there's things we can do here. So
the motion is to give New York City EDC a letter of support for their FEMA brick grant proposal.
That's it. That's perfect.
A motion.
So Miles made the motion.
So Miles made a motion. I need acceptance between Miguel and Sir.
I second the motion.
Miguel.
Okay, great. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So the motion passes unanimously, and we're not going to cut you off, Charlie. I know you brought a whole crew with you, so we'll continue on with the presentation. But that was it for voting items, and the rest is for our own entities.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Jocelyn, Charlie, just know that tomorrow, maybe Jocelyn or you need to be at the full board meeting in case there's any questions that needs to be answered. So we'll send you the link for that, okay?
Okay.
Yep, happy to do that.
So the Great NYC plan was, it is a citywide initiative that we have been working on for the last few years. The strategies are essentially, the goal specifically on point for this, for the RFEI that we had put out in 2018, I believe, was to identify an operator and develop a marine barge terminal that would service the Hunts Point Food Distribution Center. The goal was to reduce truck congestion with a goal of improving air quality via that reduction in truck congestion. Create jobs and then obviously support the local economic development and local businesses. You can go to the next slide. Actually, if you want to go back, sorry. So the that we had put out for Hunts Point was not successful. We received numerous applications. Early on in that process, one of the respondents rescinded their application, and more recently, one of the other respondents that we were discussing the opportunity with, due to COVID, among other things, they also rescinded their proposal. At this moment, the Freight NYC RFEI is closed, and we won't be moving forward with selecting a respondent to that RFEI. However, what we're here to discuss today is a different RFEI that we will be releasing through an operator that works with us on a number of other maritime initiatives, and we want to, in essence, achieve the same goals that are outlined here, but use a different method to be able to do that. So we want to discuss with you what that RFEI opportunity is and how that is slightly distinct from what you're seeing here. The Freight NYC RFEI was essentially an opportunity to have a direct leasing relationship with EDC as an entity, whereas what we're about to discuss in a minute is a slightly different, but nonetheless seeks to achieve some of the same goals. Servicing the food distribution center, taking trucks off the road, and creating jobs. And my colleague Felix will help me run through the next slide. Felix, if you want to take it from here, but essentially Dock NYC is a public-private arrangement that we have for the maintenance of maritime facilities across the city.
Good evening, everyone. So as Charlie said, we're getting ready to release an RPI via operator, Billy Bay Marina Services. So they manage a portfolio of sites on our behalf that are our waterfront sites, and the attractiveness of the program is that it's able to expedite site access through use and occupancy permits, as opposed to going more traditional procurement methods where with long-term leases and subsequent negotiations that are involved in that and approvals, they're able to, through this agreement, do occupancy permits and licenses for short-term uses up to a year, and they can renew those permits, which is attractive to the maritime sector, and especially with wanting to unlock the Freight NYC initiative and make that modal shift that the plan is seeking to make. So this mechanism will allow logistics companies and maritime operators to do some business development and pilot freight services and test the waters, as they say, to see what are realistic and feasible freight routes and networks that could be developed and sustainable over the long term. But this is an opportunity for them to get that entry and that site access and less with low risk and low barrier to entry. The RFEI includes many sites of 18 sites total. The Point site is one of them. It'll be a rolling RFEI on the DocNYC website. It's docnyc.com for those that don't know. And it'll be responsibly reviewed on a monthly basis starting at the end of January.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
These 18 sites, one of them is going to be Hunts Point, correct?
Yes.
Because it's not listed on the map here. So
no, this map shows the existing. This map shows the existing sites.
Okay, all right.
Yes, Rob, so I think to summarize this page, because we have a site description on the next slide. Essentially, we outsource the leasing, licensing, permitting, and a number of other activities on our waterfront sites. We outsource that to an operator that we work with, in this case, Billy Bay. So down Manhattan, for instance, there are seaplanes that come in. EDC as an entity does not interact with those licensees. Our operator, DocNYC, is the one that interacts with those licensees. So essentially, we outsource the responsibility of permits, maintaining properties, and entering into licenses to that entity that we cooperate. But they manage the day-to-day of those waterfront opportunities. So yes, Hunts Point will be one of those sites that will be included in this RFP.
Is it the map here, Charlie? Is it this area that you're proposing?
Yes. So the EDC is limited to jurisdiction as shown here for waters in Hunts Point. I know that I've discussed with Ralph, both under the Freight NYC RFEI and now under this RFP opportunity. It's come up, requests or ideas about expanding the potential geography that this barging operation can happen to include the adjacent jail site. Unfortunately, that is not under EDC jurisdiction at the moment, so we don't have the power to sort of include that as a potential site for barging operations. However, I think if the Closed Rikers campaign is successful, and I can't really speak to the schedule upon which the barge in Hunts Point is going to be relocated or closed, but I think we'd be excited to explore a larger geography should the opportunity afford itself in the future. But for the time being, the projected site included in the RFP is the one that's shown here. As Felix mentioned, this is a rolling RFP. What that means is it doesn't have a fixed submission date. However, we will begin taking submissions at the end of January, and then we will be collecting and reviewing submissions every month thereafter. We're happy to answer questions, but questions on this would be submitted to info@docnyc.com, and the operator would be collecting those questions and available for comment on that.
Ralph, Charlie, what I see here, I don't see the entrance. Where would they dock at in this particular area that you're showing here? And how would the trucks come in to get their trailers?
So we are not dictating right now where they would go. It is the responsibility of the respondents to submit to us a plan for consideration. So under the Freight NYC plan, the respondents included one respondent included a private site, which is where the Oak Point. It's around where the cement boats come now, the site that's owned by Steve Smith. Another respondent submitted a proposal that would go within the fish market leasehold, sort of to the left of those piers that you see that stick out from the former DSNY site. And we were on the precipice of beginning discussions with the fish market about having a barging operation on a piece of their leasehold. So, it's not for us to dictate. It's for us to consider and review. So once and if we get respondents, we would review those for appropriateness.
How does the community board review some of these applications or the companies? From what I see here, you're talking about the fish market, possibly the fish market. I see Anheuser-Busch. I don't know these other companies, but, I like to make sure that it's somebody local, that we know that we have some relationship with, that we don't have to go out building. So like a guy like Steve Smith, we have a relationship with. We don't want to go out to build that relationship. We already got that relationship. And so, I just have those concerns.
So we've done this in other instances where we've done blind briefings of sorts with the community board to look at some proposals. So, I think we could discuss with our legal team the appropriate. Well, for one, we have to first get something to consider. So I think at the moment, as was seen with the Freight NYC plan, it's a very challenging environment to bring something of this to fruition. We hope that the barrier to entry is somewhat reduced by the Dock NYC operator assisting in the licensing and permitting process. But I think we continue to hold out hope that we could get a respondent that would help some of the goals of reducing truck miles, improving air quality, and serving some of the Hunts Point distribution tenants with something much more efficient and less impactful to the environment by bringing goods by barge versus trucks.
How much emissions does this stop from going into the air in Hunts Point?
I mean, that's a case-by-case basis. So I think each proposal is evaluated by other things, how many truck miles they're taking off the road. And that really depends on the scale of their operation. So someone who brings in many more barges that has a higher capacity is offsetting a higher sort of truck miles off the road versus someone who has a much smaller footprint. So I think it really depends on a case-by-case basis.
All right.
Charlie. So, I just have to get this straight in my head. So, Dock NYC is willing to kind of run these things, but there still has to be RFIs put out by the local businesses as to how it works. And then also another question was, I saw before, there's seaplanes, there's excursions, daily, you put something about, in the previous slide, I had something about excursions. Like, what are we talking about there? So, like, a vote or something like that? Part of the process, or it's something that they've done in the past?
So I think so Doc NYC currently manages relationships and licenses with, seaplane companies, excursion vessels, aka party boats. But that's in other parts of the city. I think here we are looking specifically for a barging operation that would offset truck miles. The idea is, and Felix can chime in a bit here, but the idea is that Doc NYC has staff and the expertise to manage permitting processes for getting these types of operations off the ground. They have the relationships and the expertise working with agencies, the state environmental agencies, the federal environmental agencies, and permitting agencies, and they would be assisting a permittee here in navigating that process. And essentially, instead of having a 25 or 50-year lease with the city that carries significant financial risk, they would have short-term licenses with Doc NYC that could be something as short as a week for a permit to conduct some type of work, or it could be much longer than that. But essentially, we want to reduce the barrier to entry that could be somewhat to companies that want to conduct this kind of business in Hunts Point. But I was in the city, writ large, since this RFP is for 17 sites, including Hunts Point.
And you're saying that the area in the yellow is stuff that EDC kind of controls and can put this there? Because if I recall, that the original proposal kind of went a little bit more around the peninsula than just this area. Or have you just reduced it to include this portion?
The original proposal included we were offering access to land via lands that we controlled, but we were also offering financial incentives of up to $25 million. So if someone submitted for consideration a piece of property that was not city-owned land, but we thought that was a viable proposal, we had the capacity to offer them city capital to reduce the cost of constructing a barging and a barging operation. In this particular instance, we don't have, we can't really offer land that we don't own or land that we don't control. So that's limited to this geography versus the previous RFP that included a much larger geography.
And
I have a question.
If I recall correctly, when you guys were first coming out with this, was when we first got wind of our current neighbor down there was Amazon, and I know you guys, EC and Amazon, don't necessarily have a great relationship, but have you contacted them? I mean, I guess they're still going to have as many trucks as the vans coming out, but that's another big trucking operation. Is that something that you have you broached them about the possibility of voting instead of? I
can say for certain, although we don't, it is not typical for us to give anybody just specifically sort of a heads up that an RFP is coming out, because that gives them a competitive advantage versus other companies. One thing to note is that specifically in the food distribution center, of which this is a piece of or would be a piece of, it has to comply with the food and agriculture laws for the state that mandate that properties here have to have a food manufacturing use or something that supports a food manufacturing use. So in the freight and RFP, if any respondent was to, I believe, ship anything more than like 15% of their goods would go outside of the food distribution center, that would not be eligible. So I think the same thing applies here, that we don't perceive this to be a barging operation for tenants and companies outside of the food distribution center, but it should be that supports the existing tenants in the community. So our hope is to not increase truck traffic, but in fact to reduce truck traffic.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Ralph. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, I'm sorry. Charlie, we got three things here I'm thinking about, right? So you got the letter, the acknowledgement of the proposal with FEMA, and it happens to be exactly where this location is, right? Where we're looking at for that. You got the Freight NYC that's going to be right next door to this. Let's just say, is there any thoughts, like if you get all three, the Freight NYC going, the FEMA grant, and if this proposal, this RFEI comes through, what are we doing here? I wish we had NYCHA as good as landlords as EDC is, because you guys are throwing a lot of money at these companies, and they're not. I feel they're not giving enough back to the community. They get, as Bobby mentioned, they might get tax incentives. I know their lease agreement with you guys, it's not market rate. I'm going to say it's below market rate, right? They're not, and we feel the community, you need support here to help out your tenants. But where is the support back for us with these guys? There's nothing coming back to the community. And this is where Maria is dancing around this. I'm like, what's going on here? Let's just say, my question is, Freight NYC and the FEMA brick, whatever, and now this Dock NYC. If everything were to be happening, this is all happening at the same time. Is there anyone that's going to be a priority? That's my question. My comment now is, you guys are giving too much to these people, and you need our help, and nothing is coming back to us, Charlie.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point. I think we try to do as much as possible from a macro level to incentivize the creation of new businesses, the success of existing businesses, and in this case, sort of reducing the barriers to entry into a specific market. So, I think it's a fair point that, some of these companies may not be the community as much as you would like, but I think that's a little bit beyond our capacity to mandate or drive them to provide community benefits or other things. And I think, you folks have been successful on a number of fronts, whether it's food drives for the holidays or
but Charlie, you're right. I hear you, Charlie. You can't mandate them, right? But we're the ones that they need the support from. Basically, it's EDC, and you're supporting your tenant. So what's the sense of giving them the support if they can't be the reciprocal, right? They can't turn around and give us support. And what are we asking? We're not asking for anything. We're asking, when they have vacancies, job vacancies, consider our residents that live here. I mean, if that's asking for too much, then they're asking us for too much, is, my point here. Because, you need all of the support here, and it's going to these two. This whole thing so far, 3 big presentations, and all I see is Anheuser-Busch. And I understand they're in the alcohol, beer business. It's kind of hard for them to, what are they going to give us, boxes of beer? I understand that, right? It's going to be a bit difficult. However, they got to
talk for yourself, please.
They got to be something else. What are they going to give us here? I understand that, but something got to give. Something got to give here. I mean, you're asking us for all these, look at all these $1 million projects, and it's going for these places. But my question is, let's just say all 3 are going to happen. I mean, I don't see can all 3 coexist with each other here?
Yeah, I can't speak to the specifics around the Anheuser-Busch construction. It's a very small building, and that's something that can probably be done in a matter of months, and that's happening now. FEMA grant is something that we won't know for another year, and it would take 3 years for that project, or at least we have we're being held to a 3-year schedule to bring a project to fruition. This RFEI is going out soon, with its first submission being due in January. So I think we will know on the first month of next year, and we can report back, when we do get a submission. We'll know relatively soon whether there's appetite for a barging operation here. So I think they're slightly on different schedules. I get your point. But I would say to the larger question about like companies giving back to the community, as we're going to go into in a minute on the Hunts Point Vision Plan, I think you and Bobby and others were around when that plan first became a thing back in 2004. And we know from documents and other things that there was a high degree of participation from businesses in Hunts Point as part of that plan. And I think that the new plan or updating that plan presents an opportunity to really call businesses to come to the table to discuss how they can be of service to the community and what can happen. What can they give back to the community? How can we work together to achieve shared goals? And I think that's really the table that we should be inviting them to really for you to share those concerns directly with them. And that can be a forum to discuss, more larger issues about how they can be supporting you.
Ralph?
Yeah, like I said, that was more of just of a comment. As I just want to know if they can all coexist. But I'm seeing this whole presentation here, and this is just what's running through my mind, and I just wanted to speak on it.
Your comments are totally on target because I personally understand that Anheuser can't do anything because they can't. What are they, like you said? What are they going to do? Give us beers? But that's a lot of money coming into that little area, and the community is not benefiting out of it because even though you're trying to lower the mileage on the streets with the trucks, it's still going to bring some trucks into the area that haul out the cargo. So we're still being affected, and there's nothing going on for the community to say, you know what, we're at least working with them. They gave us some jobs. We got some jobs there. We got we're getting something out for the community. But at this point right now, you're correct, Ralph. You shouldn't be saying, you just want to state make a statement. That's a strong statement from the community. I think Miguel needed to say something.
Yeah, I agree with Bobby and Ralph. I think that we're being asked to support, but then when it comes back to us asking for things, it always seems to be like pulling teeth. And I think that as these things come to fruition, that there should be. And I get Charlie's position that he can't mandate. I get it. I understand that. But then there should be, as I was stated, I think by Ralph, that there should be some kind of a meeting where these conversations could be had with the people who have the power to give us what it is that we're asking for. And I don't think we're asking for a lot. We were talking about $1 million companies, and we're not asking for a lot. We're asking for some jobs and some opportunities for some of our community residents. And if and as Charlie stated, he can't mandate. But then, tell me if I'm wrong. Can't a meeting be mandated where you have to meet with the community board, you have to hear their concerns, you have to try to meet some of their needs that they're asking for? I don't see why that isn't possible.
So, Felix here. With respect to the RFEI and this initiative, to speak to your concerns about jobs, so there's part of the requirements in the submissions is for the respondents to submit their MWBE participation plans, and that's if there's any work, subcontractor work, they would reserve that work up to 30% of that scope for MWBE firms. So that's one way to support in terms of jobs and business. And then the other thing too is the Hire NYC. They have to submit in their response how they're going to be supportive of the Hire NYC plan. I know that's a citywide plan and not a neighborhood specific program, but just want to bring that to your attention, that those are two tools available to address local hiring and local jobs and local business opportunities. And with respect to being able to have FaceTime with potential respondents, in the past we've done that with permittees that were looking to operate at locations, and we would welcome the opportunity to, if there are permittees that we think have the potential to, or respondents that we think have the potential to start up a service here, we would bring them to a community board meeting to again make those introductions and start that relationship.
I understand your position. I understand Charlie's position, but I think that you got everybody. And Charlie, I guess this is the beating up time.
I knew it was I
enjoy these projects because it upgrades our community. That's not a problem. But, you know, Anheuser-Busch has been there since the beginning of time that I can remember. Okay? And, you know, they don't do nothing for this community at all. And I don't care, you know, they can be doing job fairs for drivers. They can be doing job fairs for helpers, truck helpers, warehouse workers. They could do a whole bunch of other things that has nothing to do with them giving beer or anything like that to us. But they're not doing that, you know. And so, you know, they've been eating out of the plate for a long time. And Miguel, it's not $1 million operation. That's $1 billion operation.
Understood.
And we're not getting nothing out of this. All we get is their trucks coming in and their trucks going out. And they may say, yeah, we hire from the community. The entire Bronx is not Board 2. All right? I'm talking about Board 2, and you know this, Charlie. I've always fought for Board 2. I don't fight for Board 1, Board 3, 4, 5, 8, 12, especially those Riverdale community boards, because they don't want no shelters up there. But, you know, you got to understand, there's something, you guys have to be our advocates also. You know, fine that you can't dictate to them, but you got to be our advocates to talk on our behalf if we're not at the table. Because you, Charlie, more than anybody else, and I keep saying it, from EDC, you know this community better than anybody else. You know you know exactly what, you know, I would feel comfortable with, what Maria can feel comfortable with, what Ralph can feel comfortable with. And before you present these things, you should know that. And you should be talking to them and already saying, listen, if we do this, this is what I know what the community is going to talk about and what they want.
Yeah.
And I know, you know, like I said, this is the beat up time, and I don't like it. I don't like doing this. I don't like the beating up. I'm serious about this. I'm tired of it. You know, I'm getting too old for this. But how many times are you guys going to continue bringing projects to us? And when we say, well, where's the jobs? We keep hearing the same line over and over and over again. We can't dictate to them. We can't tell them what to do. You can advocate for us, and if you're not successful, then you let them come to our table and let them come to us, and we can talk to them. Because honestly, what this community needs, and especially in these times, is jobs. It's in this COVID time, we need jobs. And
Bobby, I think
yes, Rob.
you know I think what you're suggesting also. Is definitely where we need to sit down. We need a meeting now. You know, maybe we can have EDC or maybe the council member orchestrate this meeting for us to meet with these businesses so that they hear it from us that, you know, we are willing to help. And you're right. These are beautiful projects. At the end of the day, this is all great. trying to decrease truck traffic and everything. However, there's more to it than that. And I think what I'm hearing from you is we should be speaking directly to them and let them know that we've been helping them all along. And, we're here, that they should be reaching out to us. There should be more transparency between these businesses and the residents of the community, even if they can't give us jobs, be more transparent with us one way or another. And then from there, we can not even strengthen, but develop a relationship with them. And I think that's where EDC in particular could be very helpful here, where they can say, listen, you're our tenants and these guys are tenants here also. You should know each other. They should make at least the introductions to us one way or another. And I understand the Hunts Point Vision Task Force, Charlie, you mentioned it, and the resiliency, a lot of them participated, but that was a long time ago. We need something that's going to continue and then find a way to make sure that it doesn't dissolve as obviously it did. It did dissolve. So we have to revisit, I think, a few things here with some of these businesses and make them aware that we're happy that they're going to benefit, but that they should be aware that we're also, we're a part of, we're a part of this. Besides you guys giving them the money, you got, finding the funding and allocating the funding to them, that we're a part of this, that they need our support at the end of the day. I think, there should be some types of conversation where we can at least get that addressed.
Yeah, I think we can certainly play that convening role. I think we'd be more than happy to do it.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I think, this slide that's right in front of us, we're speaking to yet to be determined company. I think when we have a company in hand and we feel comfortable and that we're prepared to present to the community for consideration, certainly all those things are questions that I ask and that we ask about, MWB targets, local hiring plan, et cetera, et cetera. But I think in the absence of having a very specific company in front of us, we can't really go into those kinds of details, and the RFP itself doesn't mandate those things. But I think when we have a counterparty across the table, those are certainly questions that we ask.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right. The next slide is what we've been waiting the whole night to get to. Some of these other things were, we had to present on, but this is really what we wanted to come to talk to you all about, or at least what I'm excited to talk to you all about. So my colleague Wahira is going to walk us through a few updates on the Hunts Point Vision Plan, on communication with the community moving forward. We also have Nate and his team in Neighborhood Strategies to speak to the Hunts Point Vision Plan. But I'll kick it off to Wahira to talk about how we want to improve our communications with the community.
Good evening, everyone. So pre-COVID, I know we had a meeting and we talked about a communication plan. I don't think we ever landed anywhere. I think there was a little bit of back and forth that needed to happen. If we had the resources to implement what you all had in mind, post-COVID, there have obviously been some changes in resources and what we're able to do. So previously, we did give biannual updates. We realized that wasn't enough. And you all called for more frequent updates and just kind of changing cadence. So we are moving to quarterly updates. So for example, we could do January, May. You guys are out for the summer, return in September, and then maybe something else before the year ends. And we'll still communicate important updates in the interim. But we think, quarterly is the appropriate cadence based on how the projects are progressing. We'll also, with the kickoff of the Hunts Point Vision Plan, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in a second, that's going to have constant communication. So we'll have that stream as well. So just wanted to confirm that this worked for you all.
Mahira, well, what about the newsletter?
So, if we did a newsletter, so you would prefer a newsletter over us actually coming to the board? My thought, and why I'm not.
No. I'm not saying I prefer that, but that was something that we agreed upon that a newsletter will be created. So I don't know if this is substituting for that.
Well, we proposed a newsletter to you all that would be digital. You responded and said that you wanted something physical, and we said we would go back and see if we had the resources to do that, especially in terms of translation and things like that. COVID happened, and so now we're revisiting the plan for communication.
So are we saying that because of COVID we lost money and that's why we're not getting it as a physical, like Ralph had asked?
So if you want to do a newsletter, we can do a newsletter. Why I'm not too excited about the idea of a newsletter is because we will send you something and you will have questions about it. And so it doesn't open up the opportunity to have a conversation about it like what we're doing today. But if we come to the board, we can have a conversation. We can get your questions answered and make sure that you have all the information that you need. But if you prefer a newsletter, we can talk about that. But I just think it's important to be able to answer your questions.
I think I think regardless, there's going to be questions, whether you're presenting it the way you do now, a newsletter. However, the newsletter will have a better, it'll reach the maximum amount of people. We're doing it here at a committee and at even the community board. That's not 100 people. You send out a physical newsletter, we got 60,000 residents. We're going to look at a couple of thousand newsletters that you need to send out.
It's almost impossible to be able to print out a newsletter. Like I haven't had anything printed from EDC. We're not.
Ralph, let me ask you. Are you asking for a digital version of, call it this presentation, and an email that goes out to a list of residents, and they get this information in email form? So I know I've been talking with Rahira, and at some point there was a desire.
Yeah, Charlie, I'm gonna be honest with you. I know that was what the committee was recommending, this committee here. So I'll leave it back up to them. But if I'm not mistaken, the last time we spoke, it was regarding a physical newsletter. So that's why I'm just bringing that back on the table.
I understand the appetite for that, but I mean, we don't have the budget at the moment to print even half. There's 16 residents in community code too. We don't have the resources at the moment to even print half of that.
Right.
What I'm hearing is so Ralph, I was part of all of these conversations too, and we definitely I think what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to communicate as much as we can, as clearly as we can within our resource constraints. That's our commitment, right? We want to do that. I think we've been open with that from the beginning, that we want to do that. It's not feasible, I think, at this point for us with our budget to be able to print a newsletter that at one point we thought of doing in English and Spanish, distributing in the neighborhood. We unfortunately just can't do it. So we'd love to find another way to do that if that's
great. Okay.
Through the vision, it's probably going to be digital.
Listen.
So I know that these guys have email lists. We want to be able to do that, and then we want to come back, and then we'll have the vision plan, which will have its own communication. So I think the idea is we communicate as much as we possibly can in a way that we can do it.
Hey, I hear you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that.
I hear you. No, that's fine. And I want to make it clear, too, that both Nate and Wahira have been excellent in communicating with me. They've been very accessible. But I just wanted, I more or less knew exactly with the newsletter. But I just wanted to bring it up now to the committee. And I know I don't want to go without saying that you guys have been constantly contacting me. Charlie also keeping me abreast of what's going on. But I think it should be done at the committee also, so that they're made aware that you guys are trying your best to stay on top. So thank you for that, Wahira. Thank you.
100%. We're happy to come to the committee as much and as often as about the topics we can. Like making a newsletter, printing a newsletter, staff time, all of that. It's just unfortunately is not something that we can do. But regular updates to the committee, other committees like Tracy coming to the environmental committee, happy to do it.
Yeah. And like I said, it allows for that communication opportunity.
Yeah.
You can ask questions and we can answer them in real time.
Well, here, this is Bobby. My concern with the quarterly, I mean, it's got to be that way. It's got to be that way. But history has shown us that, unfortunately, EDC comes to us at the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm afraid that in this quarterly type of operation, we get information too late.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it doesn't allow us to absorb and respond. And so, you know, I don't know how that is going to fall into your plans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really have those concerns on that side. You know, and my next concern is, if it's digital, are you going to make it in Spanish also?
Mm-hmm.
So, means.
Well, no, I was waiting for you to finish so I can answer the question. To address the first point, we totally hear you. I think we have a really good sense of the projects and the commitments that are really important to the board and ones that you're really staying on top of. So we do our best, like Ralph said, to make sure that he has the updates on really important projects and really anything that's coming down the pipeline that we know you'll be interested in that may fall, you know, before a board meeting. So we will still continue to communicate updates in the interim. I think the only tricky thing with having a more frequent cadence is that, you know, there's really just not always going to be things to report, and we want to be respectful of your time and conscious of our staff resources as we're working with a lot less people than we started with. And so we just want to make sure we actually have substance to report to you all, and quarterly allows that, especially, like I said, based on how the projects are progressing. It's just not enough to necessarily update every month.
And I understand with the projects that we presently have and all of that, and it's true, we're staying on top of it, but sometimes you guys come up with like that truck parking project.
That wasn't us though. That was DOT. Is when we shared it.
They took the ball to you guys. They threw you guys on the bus.
I'm happy to fall on that sword.
But
yes, we could have done better there.
I'm just saying that sometimes there's little projects that come up, and we cannot wait till this happens, this quarterly meeting, because there's little projects, and we need to put our input. And Charlie knows that as long as I'm staying chairman, and I know he's praying that I don't stay chairman too long, but my hope is, you know, my thing is about jobs for my community board, you know, and I don't want to hear about community in its Bronx County. I want to hear about community board too. What kind of jobs can we get for community board too? Because at the end of the day, I'm the one, Ralph's the one, the councilman's the one that has to respond. And Maria has to respond to people to say, you know, what did we get out of this, you know? And that's why I'm saying this. I like the idea, at least the quarterly, because that at least gives us some understanding, you know. And if you don't have anything to report on what we present, you know, that's on the pipeline, then you just let us know. Listen, we don't have anything to report, but maybe we have some information that we've heard, and you could clear up for us on any of the projects. But,
yeah, I guess I'll maybe as an example of how this would work in practice is we have something like this, right, where we come and we talk about quarterly across a whole suite of projects. And then, as an example, when Tracy from our land use group came to talk about remediation, she gave the committee a really deep dive into remediation, what's happening, the history of the site, what's the technology, and she did that outside of that quarterly cadence. And so if there's specific topics that you guys want to get into and get under the hood on, we can bring in the appropriate people. But this is just a way that we set up a structure that works on an ongoing basis that we can adhere to, plus digital ways in which we can communicate, plus the vision plan that we're going to talk about in a second, which is a direct response to this, that of what you guys have been talking about and what we've been hearing is we need to hear and understand how you guys are communicating about projects, but we need to communicate to people about the board's priorities for projects and the community's priorities, because those are changing. So I would say that's a flavor of how we have done this in response to what we've heard and what we will be doing going forward, if that makes sense.
It's your plan, and hopefully it'll work.
No, I mean, I would say we're a vessel for this, man. I mean, to be perfectly honest, we work with you guys as partners on this. Like that, it's not ours. It's working with you guys, 100%.
Yeah, so I would say, I think to something we're here mentioned here with as an example, and I think what would be good is for us to get on your agendas like well in advance, and then we can say right now we're going to come to you, say we're going to be in the January meeting, and you'll calendar in us for January, and we'll be on the May meeting. And like right now in November, we know that we have to come to you in May, and it's already on our board, it's already in our work plan, as opposed to I think some of the things we did before, which was sort of ad hoc. We'll come to you every 6 months ish if the schedule allows, and if we have something to report that's significant. And I know that it was that more than 6 months had passed by. So I think us pre-scheduling a number of these updates helps us build that into our schedule for reporting. That there's a slot for us to work with. Even though there's a lot going on and maybe there's competing interests and competing items, but if we can pre-schedule some of this thing to the best of our abilities, then you can hold us accountable to ensuring that we are there on a quarterly basis to report.
Ralph, question. How many people do we have in our web mailing list? Or Cynthia?
It depends. I do it according to what people's interests are. But if it's a mass mailing, I would say over 250 to 300 people.
That we can send out if we have to send out?
Yes.
Will this disc that you guys are creating, would it be able for us to be sending this stuff out?
You mean if we digital newsletter?
Yeah.
Yeah. We would definitely send it in a way, and I mean, we can probably pull from your listserv and add it onto ours, and we can send it directly to them as well. And I wanted to answer your question on the translation. I think it is possible. We're doing everything in-house, so honestly, it's probably going to be Charlie translating all the materials.
I don't speak Spanish. I don't speak any Spanish.
So,
I forgot Spanish.
I know nothing. Don't ask me. I'm like this guy that I know in the board named Rafa Acevedo. He talks broken Spanish. Me do the thing. So you got to do that in-house.
Yeah, it is possible, but we would just have to figure out the cadence to make sure Charlie has enough time to get it to you all in English.
I'm gonna pay for some Spanish lessons, so
make us all look bad then. Miguel, you got something to say?
I was going to say that I have an ESL class, but that wouldn't work for Charlie.
All right. Anything else?
We do have one more slide.
One more slide.
A
few more, I think.
Committing to the quarterly for now, and see how that goes.
All right.
Yeah, we've got an update on the Hunts Point Vision Plan and where we are. If Eric's still on.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good evening. Nice to meet you guys virtually. As Charlie mentioned and Nate mentioned, my name is Eric Bilal. I work in the Neighborhood Strategies Department with Nate, also joined by my colleague Isha Patel, who's on the call. So we're sure that the community board is really familiar with the 2004 Hunts Point Plan. That was obviously a tremendous effort by the community leaders and also the city to develop recommendations for how to address critical issues on the peninsula over the past 16 years, which is a really long time. There has been a ton of progress, but of course, I think both the community and the city recognize that there are both ongoing and especially new challenges in 2020 and beyond that need to be addressed. So we're really excited to provide the update that the city's kicking off this inclusive and participatory community-based planning process to revisit, as Ralph mentioned, also update and build upon the 2004 vision plan the idea here is that we'll be guiding the next 15 to 20 years of investment in Hunts Point. I think a really good point was brought up about the relationships that could be established through this process, and that's something that we really want to make sure that we get right. So we're partnering with the Pratt Center for Community Development, which is a coup for us that's really great. We'll also be working with Hunts Point Longwood, Pareto-based strategies, and others who will help guide the process with us at EDC, but also our partner agencies. We'll be trying to balance, obviously, the needs and priorities of the residents, the workers, and the industries on the peninsula. I think it's pretty clear that there are a lot of people here that are trying to get along, so we want to make sure that this plan is an opportunity to convene and provide a forum for those relationships. This engagement team will be facilitating conversations and workshops for the community, and this will guide this comprehensive planning process, and that will lead to kind of a new and updated set of projects and programs to improve the lives and create new and equitable opportunities, specifically on the peninsula and in Hunts Point. So this is a quick update, and the real kind of headline here is that for next steps, we're aiming to begin the outreach process in early 21. So we're really excited to get the work started, but it's still early, so we're ramping up, and we're planning on staying in touch consistently and constantly, as Nate mentioned. We imagine that this process can work in concert with the kind of regular updates to the community board that we were just talking about on the last slide. So I imagine that you guys will be hearing a lot more of my voice and seeing me on the screen in the near future, as well as Nate and Isha. So to be cognizant of time, I want to keep it brief, unless there's any questions.
Ralph, that's your baby and Maria's.
I think we're excited. We're going to put some meat on the bones pretty soon on what the engagement plan will look like. Here on my team has been working on developing new strategies for equity and reaching more people use digital tools. And it's this as a tremendous opportunity to put some of those ideas to test. And I think, it's really going to be a great opportunity to do this plan, but really a challenge given COVID, among other things. But I think, as Nate can probably expand better than I, there's no better time than right now to think about how we can create a beautiful vision for the future. Given all the challenges that we're all facing, it's more important now than ever to have a strategy that we can work off of, so that we can all be successful and see the product of that labor come to fruition over the next, 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, there's nothing I would add to that, just beyond to say that we're excited about the prospect of this. We've talked about it for a while. I know we've been to you guys a few times saying we're going to start. So it's time to get moving, and we're excited to do it. I just also wanted to introduce a couple other colleagues who are from EDC, who are on Adam Grossman-Marr, who heads our neighborhood strategies department, who's somebody who we're going to be working with closely. He's on the call as well. And then Rachel Aronson, who's been working on the Hunts Point Vision Plan and getting ourselves up to this point for quite some time, and has moved from working on our Hunts Point Vision Plan team to working on resiliency. So she's able to bring an expertise and a level of understanding about resiliency and engagement that's going to really help our team. So both Adam and Rachel are on the call, in addition to the core team that we just, with Charlie, Wahira, Eric, Isha, and myself. But we're excited to start it. I mean, we're, like I said, this is with us working together. I see working with Maria, working with the Point, working with the Longwood Coalition. Beyond it, we wouldn't be able to do this and get to where we want to go, which is going to be something that's an important document that will help us go forward together without the partnership of the folks on this call. So I just wanted to say that. Otherwise, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks, Nate.
Yeah.
If I can just jump in here real quick, and I'm sorry if there's any noises on my end before. Excited that this is finally kicking off. I've heard the grapevine that we're getting ready to kick it off, and I guess my only concern is it feels like we're doing this now just as it feels as if the city's about to get shut down, so a lot of outreach and stuff may not that we could have maybe done in the summertime and things are a little bit more lax. We can't do now maybe until January, February. But, glad it's getting off the ground and, we're going to try our best to get out there and hopefully things change that we're able to, do what we need to do to reach the people and have those kind of contacts that are necessary for this project.
Yeah, Maria, speaking from the project team, we've been itching to do this for months. We've been wanting to do it for months, and we needed to see what our budget picture looked like at the end of the quarter to have a sense of where we could go. And so we agree with you. We wanted to be able to start, but just being fiscally responsible with the agency's money, we had to look at every single penny. So I hear what you're saying 100%. But we've got the opportunity, and we're glad that we're going to be able to grab the bull by the horns and take it.
Maria, who's involved in this vision plan?
Well, a lot of it is the Hunts Point Longwood Community Coalition. So it's Urban Health Plan, it's Casino Maria, The Point, all the other groups that are involved in that, and SHOP, a couple other agencies that interact, and as well as Pratt Institute and Barreto-based strategies that are doing kind of heading up the intelligence part. I guess we're the outreach part, and they're the surveying and all that other stuff. So,
okay. I just wanted to.
So, I'm sorry, Bobby.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bobby. I just wanted to say, Maria's point just about the outreach and hoping, I don't know if you're going to get as much attention, but I think this is a real good thing. I know we've been hitting y'all with some other stuff here, in particular with like the Freight NYC, the Stock NYC, the FEMA grant, right, and all that other stuff. But this was something that has been a long time in the making, and I'm happy that the funding did come through for this finally, which is some good stuff. And I think having this liaison also, just the vision task force come in and get this proposal going, and it can incorporate everything else that EDC is doing in the peninsula one way or another, that'd be great. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's your show, bro. Maria, any other questions? Anything from your committee?
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right, I think that might be it. Anybody else have any questions?
we could skip through some of this stuff, but folks have to go home.
We're all home all the time, right? Yeah. Right.
Charlie needs to eat his granola bar.
I'm starving. So we'll be quick. The rest of this stuff should be good news. So we put out the RFEI for the modernization of the produce market back in August of you see the list of goals here. Where we are today is the produce market is having ongoing conversations with respondents to refine the proposals that have been submitted and define what that project would look like, how much it would cost, and that will get us to a place where we can probably designate a respondent in the coming year. So good news that we actually had a number of interested developers that are able to achieve some of these goals of modernizing the produce market, which was built back in the 1960s, and really bring it up to the 21st century to create jobs, enhance the ability for them to be successful for the next several decades while improving air quality and being responsible actors in the environment by removing some of the refrigerated trailers that are currently there. So that's the update on the market.
Ralph?
I have no questions. I guess we can move on.
Alternative fuel station I think Bobby, you and Ralph know we had a call with a few months ago with the council member. We are actually making some progress with that developer. They have sent us back a business proposal for us to entertain of possibly giving them a longer term lease on the site. The existing agreement is for a 40-year lease. They're looking for the prospects of getting a 99-year lease, which would make the project much more financially feasible for them, given how much the yet to be determined remediation is going to cost for this site. But obviously a 99-year lease versus a 40-year lease allows them to secure, different sources of financing, amortize the cost of remediation over a longer period of time, all in all, make the project more financially feasible. So we're looking at, we're reviewing with our legal teams and discussing with the developer sort of what that could look like. And we hope to have a report when we come back as part of the regular updates to the community board. But we hope to be making progress, and we'll keep you abreast as things move on.
Is it the same developer, the same guys? Okay.
Come to 5. That's all right. I want 5.
Sorry, go ahead.
2 orders of 5. Why are you so angry? Why are you so angry?
Has this been shared with the council?
Yeah, I spoke to him. I sent him an email and I spoke to his team last week.
All right. And what's the projected date now of possibly seeing this happen?
It's too early to tell. I think, as you know, we need to get them to agree.
From 40 to 99 is that's a big load off their back. That's for sure. I know that.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be having any other concerns that I could think of.
I agree.
Maria, Ralph?
Are we done yet?
No, I mean this is good progress. I know that they did keep you and I aware of the talks with the owners there and everything like that. And I'm happy that a compromise somewhat came up that works for everyone. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's been a while, so glad to see this is moving forward. And I think I win something from Ralph or something, because I think we had a bet that this would never, ever happen in our lifetime. So I'm hoping I get that beer.
I think by the time it happens, Maria, there'll be flying cars, and we won't need like this alternative fuel trucks or anything else. So.
All right. That's it, Charlie?
I think there's one closing slide and then we're done. Yay. So the Spofford project phase 1, the residential building, they're having a topping off ceremony in early December. I think that's dependent on I think we're here to speak to this, who had a discussion with our press team earlier this week.
Yeah, so this is going to be around like the week of December, and so it's really an opportunity to celebrate the construction workers who have been essential and who've been working really hard through the pandemic to complete the project. They're still working out details. We're actually going to have some folks from our team go to the site and figure out what everything is going to look like, but we'll make sure to keep you all in the loop.
Very good.
Great.
And Site D, sorry, go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah. No, I was going to say Site D remediation. The remediation is complete, and the site restoration happening now, and we hope that that's done by the end of the year. We could certainly get Tracy to come by and talk about it, since I know how excited Ralph gets about dirty waste and remediating.
Site D, that's my site there. That's my site there. Well, I've been for years.
So we'll see We'll be in touch, but we think maybe January makes sense to have a deep dive with the environmental committee on that.
All right.
And then, as was mentioned, we're kicking off the vision plan early next year. There's a lot going on. Which is a lot of good news. So thank you for giving us the floor to discuss these items.
Maria?
Okay, hello. My earbuds went out, and I'm sorry about that. So
we've been talking too long.
I guess my earbuds shut you guys down, so I don't know what to. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. I'm good with no more questions. Is there anything else, Ralph, or anything? Hold on, I'm trying to get myself together.
I have no more questions. I have no more.
Okay. Okay, so I guess thank you very much, Charlie and company, for your presentation. This is the first time it ever took 2 whole hours to get through all your stuff, but we did it.
We had 10 items. What do you want?
and Charlie, you got to come back tomorrow for the full board meeting. All right, you get the board's approval.
Yeah, can you tell me? I could talk to you offline, but let us know what time you're available.
The presentation was made already, so just in case there's any questions that Maria or someone can't answer, what do you guys can? And I'll have Cynthia send you guys the link. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess on our agenda we have new business. If anybody's any new business.
No.
Okay. Then the announcements. I think we've publicized that there's the turkey giveaway on the Baldor turkey giveaway will be on Saturday, November 21st. It'll be at the Point CDC. The line will start on the corner of Garrison and Barretto, and we'll kind of have it loop around. It's first come, first serve, and it's a turkey plus the fixing, so full Thanksgiving dinner will be given away, and I think they have over 600 meals this year, so that's 100 more than usual, 100 plus more than usual. So please pass the word along. I guess Cynthia can email the flyer to anybody who wants it to post up, and I'm sure the community board will be putting it up shortly. Are there any other announcements?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Anything you want to tell the committee?
Me?
Miles.
Miles.
Oh, Miles.
I was just going to say that we have our children's Christmas coat drive on December 12th. We're still figuring out the time with the council member, but it's going to be at the council member's office this year instead of Ponce. But that's pretty much it for now, I think. If anybody missed our annual meeting for the bid, the meeting recording and our annual report are going to go live this week on our website, so you can check that out. But otherwise, I'm good.
All right. Thank you, Miles.
All right. Well, Maria, good luck tomorrow.
All right, so I guess that's it, right? We're done?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Maria, tomorrow, Maria.
Good night.
I don't have a black eye after a CB2 meeting.
Oh, Jesus.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Take care.